Hey, 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 and we have Leanne. So, Leanne, tell me about the fact that obviously, because you're leading women to actually have their best body at any age, it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 55 or even 75, you have an understanding that when you look after your body, and you kind of steer clear of the concepts of diets and fads, that this is a really big part of what really makes a woman feel her best. So tell me about diets and fads and why they don't work.
All right. Exactly as you just said it, they don't work. There's a couple of reasons that I always talk about. Is the fact that unfortunately they're a quick fix. So people are looking for this quick fix, which then leads them to feeling worse, really, or like a failure. And in the words of some of my clients, because they're trying to do this crazy thing that fits inside a short box, like a quick box, right? And then they can't actually achieve that thing, or maybe it was awful, they didn't like it. So it's either all or nothing, which never works. We already know that never
Oh, I've
works.
seen that. Yes.
Yeah, we've all tried that. They're all or nothing, or just that feeling of not succeeding, and you really don't get that lasting change. Like usually a quick fix is not sustainable, doesn't feel good. You're going without. So therefore, your brain and your body is absolutely against you. It's battling like hell against you. And the other reason they don't work is because your body slows down. It goes, hell no, I need to keep some of this fat. So I'm not giving it up because she's not giving me enough food. So I'm going to hold on to it. So it goes into like that survival mode. And that's probably the biggest reason. It mucks up your hormones, but it actually just it just doesn't work with dieting, because you're not giving your food, you're not giving your body what it needs. And it needs a healthy mix. Your brain
Oh,
needs, a
absolutely.
healthy mix, your body. Yeah, just to even live and to breathe and to move, and your heart and your brain, everything needs food. So
Mm.
when we go without, the body just goes, hell no, I'm not doing this, and it slows down. So you don't get the right, it's not holistic. You don't get the right way of doing that. Yeah.
I always
So
say that our subconscious mind is like a rebellious teenager. It's like you're putting this in my mouth, you're making me do this. I hate this. I can't wait until this stops because I'm going to eat everything in sight. It's like the back of,
so
I
true.
remember having a barbecue one night and my girlfriend was on this special diet and we were, eating all these beautiful foods, our usual chicken, steak, sausages, and then all of the sides like potato casserole and Greek salad. And here she was holding, I won't say any brands because I don't like to do that, but she was holding this little tub of what she was eating in this diet. And
Oh,
I actually saw her have an anger attack, not an anxiety attack, an anger attack. And in front of me, because, back then we were best friends. She went and lived in the UK now, but she threw the box in the bin and she said, F this. And she just went ahead. Now, what happened to her was she just went back to this kind of constant eating, right? And this pattern of just going almost, and I think that's probably, you would know best actually, but why people kind of revert back and then get worse. So tell me,
mm, yeah.
seeing diets and fads don't work, what are the concepts of what you teach that how a person eats? Do you have 4 steps to their eating the right way, being the right way? What is the secret?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I kind of teach and live by, really. And one of them is to be happy, right? Because I have this theory that, and I've seen it after 35 years of teaching women and people to get healthy, or watching even, 10 years of mums working with mums to get healthy and to lose their weight. when you're unhappy, you're less likely to eat the nice food. You're less likely to make the food. Like you just go, what the hell? What's the point? I mostly eat this tub of ice cream because who cares, right? No one cares about me, whatever. So you're already down on yourself. You are less likely to go for that walk because you are disconnected from how you actually want to feel or how you're feeling because you're already sad. So there's a lot, I think there's a lot to say about most of the clients I've talked to in the past have been disappointed with how they're feeling, disappointed with how they're looking. They're kind of surprised. They might be out somewhere and, they see a family photo or they see they're in a selfie and then they realize that they don't like the way they look. And half the time, it's not the photo, it's just the way they're feeling and thinking about themselves at the time, because they can look at the same photo in a few months' time and go, oh, wasn't that bad? I actually looked all right. But it's the mindset because they're so hard on themselves. So I always have this thing about being happy first, like doing things that make them happy, joyful. I guess it's all about balance as well. But the 4 steps, the things that I call it a recode. So eat with love is under the guise of eating with love, because that's the best way to describe the opposite to that, right? The opposite to hating yourself and going without food, or eating, say you ate a cake and then you really pay out on yourself the next day. So it's not the cake that's the problem, it's how you treated yourself after the cake, the things you say to yourself, the self-talk. So I call it eat with love because it's the opposite, right?
I love that.
Yeah,
I do love that. Eat with love, eating with love. I love that.
yeah, because otherwise you're eating with hate, aren't you? Like you're the opposite of what you're doing.
Or you're just eating, mindlessly and you're not taking any notice. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear these 4 methodologies of recoding.
So basically, eating, we all talk about eating when you're stopping eating when you're full. So I guess if I'm looking at clients' issues that they might have, which is typically around the habits of binge eating or emotional eating, which is another reason why you want to be happy first, right? You want to try and reduce that impact of the emotions. But stop eating when you feel good versus when you feel full, because usually when you're full, it's a bit late, right? You've already shoved it down there, and then you're sick or you feel guilty and you feel, you're angry with yourself. So I think one of those that concept of stopping eating when you are actually feeling good, not full, is really, really important.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's too late after you've already scoffed it down, and then that cycle of negative talk.
And food expands, doesn't it? So I guess if you're eating, sometimes if people eat and then especially when they're binge eating, like they'll eat and eat and eat and eat, and then they'll think, oh, I'm going to eat more. But if they actually stop and they go, hang on, how am I feeling? And they take that time to, actually allow a few minutes to even go by. It's amazing how things can change, isn't it?
And really, because that feeds into the next one as well, is about being mindful, right? Eating mindfully, so nice and slow, so your body has time for your stomach to get ready for the food. Otherwise you put it down there and your body hasn't had time to even tell your brain that you're full. So I think there's a lot to be said about just really enjoying the moment, being mindful, eating slow, being present when you're eating, so that you really enjoy the experience, because why else do we want to eat apart from enjoyment? And I think,
absolutely.
I think that's gold. Yeah, because I've met clients that they're not enjoying food anymore. They don't even know what to eat anymore because they've told themselves for so long that they can't eat this and they can't eat that, and they've followed diet. So they no longer even know what they like. They don't even know what they want to eat. And so eating because you love something and desire it, is it like almost foreign to someone that spent their teen life all the way through to even now our age, I'm in my 50s, still worrying about whether I can eat that or this, and still judging food good or bad. So I think that's a big deal. If we can switch that to choosing, what do you want to eat? What do you love eating? and you won't feel like you're missing out because you've got balance and you're no longer judging. You're no longer judging yourself or food.
And Matt, what
So
about metabolism with mindful? Because I know I have had these discussions with you before, and so I guess it's a little bit like, I would say it in the opposite. When people are mindlessly eating, they're not eating because they feel hungry or because they are looking forward to the food. They're eating out of an emotional response. So, I know from the subconscious point of view, if we are actually allowing ourselves, like what you've just stated very wisely, to eat when we are hungry and actually eat mindfully, would that activate the metabolism as well, simply because we're doing it more purposefully?
I'm not too sure exactly because metabolism it's one of those things that, they sort of say we've got fast metabolism, slow metabolism. It doesn't actually, I don't think we do. I think that's something we've been told. It's called like big bones and not such big bones. It's like one of those crazy diet things.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but I think it would aid in digestion. So the way that your food is digested and then it's used properly, so your metabolism is working, but also if you're being active, you're actually, moving that food around and moving it on, and it's getting distributed for energy. And there's a big difference between eating for, I always encourage eating for energy, not for weight loss, because we want that food to give you energy,
So good,
go to
yeah.
your muscles and do stuff for you that your body wants it to do. So I think, I'm not sure about the actual mechanisms of the metabolism, but I do think it would help the digestion and your tummy working properly, rather than getting constipated or bloated or whatever. And I think the quality of food too. So you actually already said the fourth one, which is eating when you're hungry. And I think like you said, recognizing the emotional triggers and things that's going on. If you've not eaten all day because you were busy or you were distracted and then you get home, you rifle through the pantry at 5, and then you're kind of not hungry, but then you go and eat something else. Like I think it's just having that, the routine and being aware of those crazy things that we might do. Sometimes
Because
we eat when we're not
let's face it,
hungry.
yeah, I mean, eating when you're hungry. I mean, when we're born, when we come into the world, right? I mean, babies cry when they're hungry. So whatever happened to our senses where we overrode that switch,
Yes.
and and suddenly we just ate anytime and for emotional purposes or for boredom
Comfort.
purposes or
Comfort.
for
Yeah.
comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the tips that you could give to our listeners to really tap into eating when they're hungry?
I think because what you want to do overall, and I think you just mentioned something about the hungry thing. What did you mention? Eating when hungry. Because what you ideally want to do is try and level out your blood sugars, right? So you're not having these massive cravings and dips and low energy and crankiness and, hangry. You're not getting hangry. Is that we are designed to, like you say, your body knows when it's hungry, but that's what I was going to say. We actually ignore it because people are avoiding eating. They're avoiding food. If they're on a diet, for instance, I know lots of clients that will just ignore their body and their signals, and they go without, or they eat less, or they, they're trying to avoid, I guess it's through fear of food. They're trying to avoid the food because they don't want to fail. They don't want to. So I think probably the most important thing with the hunger is definitely not avoiding the food, like listening to your body. Number one would be really important, because it's not telling you to eat the whole cake. It's not really, that's your mind. Your body's not going to tell you to eat the whole cake or to eat every 2 minutes.
Right?
That's your mind telling you that, right? But because again, probably fear of missing out. You don't want to miss out on the piece of cake, or you don't want to, I don't know, maybe you just want some comfort and you need that.
Interesting how people will feel FOMO about missing out on food and like a piece of cake. And, you know, for example, I know my husband grew up in a family of 7. So there's this real urgency that I picked up with him around food, where if we were sharing, I picked it up like when we would have, you know, we'd go out, we'd eat our favorite dessert, which was like a banana fritter and ice cream and all the toppings and strawberries. And I'm the sort of person, I never deprive myself. I do actually do what you are saying. I do eat when I'm hungry, and I really ask myself those questions. But when I'm eating with him, there's this sense that there's a hurry. It's almost like, oh, I've got to get in. I'm like, hang on a minute. There is no hurry here. You know, I don't eat that much anyway. If you would prefer, you know, me to split it in half, because I'm not going to eat your share, but it's like a subconscious. He knows consciously that I am not a big eater, but his subconscious is in that desperation of, I'll miss out, I'll miss out, I'll miss out. So it's really interesting how you
Yes.
say that people can eat out of that FOMO.
Definitely. And I think what you just said too, like the fact that however we've been brought up, so like you might have had the messaging, you have to eat everything on your plate because there's starving children in Africa that are going to miss out. And we, you know, little kids, my little boys used to say, well, send it to them then, you know, they had an answer for that, right? Well, I don't care. Send it to them then. Send it the food.
That is the best I've heard.
Yeah, send it to them then. I don't
That
care.
is so good. But you know that is so true. You know, I know that when people have said to me, and I think you'll relate to this because of the story about your own mother. And you know, I am a very firm believer that whenever I am dealing with passionate people like yourself, there is an innate passion, desire, and fire that comes from your spirit that actually really, really is passionate about what you're actually doing. And you know, when I think about the story about your mum, and when I listen to people myself who say, well, you know, I was brought up just like what you said about eating everything on your plate, and getting into their mindset of, well, what's going to happen if you leave a little bit of steak, a little bit of potato on your plate if you felt good? Oh, well, that would be a waste, right? Because that seems the obvious. But what is that now? Now, when we calculate it and change the perspective from, okay, that piece of steak now is secondhand, you've eaten the best of it, you've left the fat and maybe a bit of meat. I think you would be struggling to sell that for 25 cents. But the fact is, while you're calling it a waste, what about your own waste? I mean, the waste, and this now brings me to your story of your passion about when people have these kind of wrong thinking patterns, how it can impact their health. So you obviously seen a huge struggle with your own mother and how she fought so many issues, fatigue, and was so sick, and had, you know, obviously had a heart condition. Can you talk me through that and what you saw, and you know what makes you passionate now for other people to really eat their way into the best life or eat their way into love?
Yeah. Well, she was typical, a good cook, you know, made all the, because in my 50s, as I mentioned, so therefore we didn't have a lot of packaged food. So the good thing is we grew up eating fresh food. Everything was baked. She did make a lot of slices. She was a slice queen. We called her the slice queen. And, you know, every day I'd have slices in my lunchbox, and all the neighbors knew that, you know, if you went over to Dulcie's house, you would get a slice, you know. She was really good at that. But I think over time, so she went from this pocket rocket, and I could see it must have been a decline in confidence as well. Starting with a broken knee, fell off a ladder, as most people do when they're getting older and they're trying to trim trees. So I'd say she had bone issues, but she was always perfectly groomed, obviously cared what the neighbours thought, you know, all of those things. She did have a lot of stress in our home, which I think actually does lead to these ill health and the anxieties and all that kind of stuff. So she got to the point where she wouldn't leave the house. She wouldn't, like they lived in a small 2-bedroom unit, and Dad, he enabled her, right? He gave her everything. He would bring her lunch, her breakfast, her dinner. You could ring her in the middle of the day and she hadn't got out of bed yet. So it was like, and me being full on myself at that, a bit younger, in my 30s, and training, and I had kids when I was in my 40s. So she always thought that I was doing all right for my age. I was going really well for my age, right? So a very different aspect. Like I do have a theory too, a feeling that we are way ahead of where our parents may have been, because they wouldn't have been in the gyms. They wouldn't have been worried about their muscle tone or being fit and healthy. So over time, you know, she had back fractures and she had a heart condition, so she had a heart surgery. And all of these things are not unusual for a lot of people, like hysterectomies, all sorts of things that went on. But I think what's unusual is that they kind of give up. So for her, I felt like she had given up, and she spent a lot of time self-medicating, which I think again led to some serious issues with her health as well. And I think there's an element of giving up where everything's done for you. You think you're older than you are. Like I always think I'm a youthful 55. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm an
you
old
are.
50.
You are.
So I think
Most
I
definitely.
thought my mum was quite an older woman in her way when she was a bit younger than she's acting older than she should have. And then she spent her last years in a nursing home, which and then she stopped moving altogether. They were taking her to the toilet and all these sorts of things. And yes, I think she felt sorry for herself in a way, but she wasn't prepared to even go home to the unit or change anything. And you couldn't tell her either. Like she would get very defensive about her mental health or about anything really to do with trying to help her. I would ship her boxes of, before all of this, I would send her like little self-care packs in the mail because I lived away from her. And so I'd send her vitamins and all this sort of stuff. So I was always encouraging her to look after her health. And she was at that point pretty active. But that's what I mean about there was like this line between just stopping and then just declining and just going with that, like not even fighting that. And I find that kind of scares me a little and so I'm pretty keen on helping women to have a better future.
Yeah, and that sort of brings me to saying, well, I can see your passion, because let's face it, what we put into our body, the way we move, what we do is going to be extremely significant to how we heal, how we engage, how we create our body. And obviously, like, you've really birthed a program called Shame to Shimmy, where this is the part where you're releasing habits that cause that shame and guilt, which I know a lot of women suffer, and men, and transform that shame and guilt into their most vibrant, out of this world, and sexiest, most confident self. Now, obviously, you are really passionate about this, and this has really come from your heart and soul. So tell me about what you feel is one of the things where you can help people to get to the root cause of their habits and shift them.
Yeah. So I think for me, I can see that it's not about exercise, or it's not just about weight, right? But I do know that weight is a symptom. Weight is a symptom of something greater, right? Something that's happening underneath the surface, something that's being neglected and not addressed in some way, whether that be energetically or physically, yeah? Because obviously our currency, energy is our currency, right? It's how we do everything. If we've got no energy, that makes life really hard. But I think starting with the awareness of what is happening, what does your day look like, what does your week look like, how are you feeling, like really drilling down into what is going on. So it does require a little bit of truth and a bit of confrontation. You have to confront yourself really as to what you're really doing, because sometimes there are habits that we're not proud of. And that's where the shame comes in, right? We feel guilty and shame, even though we don't want to do them, or we know that we feel bad when we do certain things, but we have habits that we haven't been able to break or cycle. So I think just breaking them down into little tiny steps, into little tiny things. So if it's something like water, for instance, if you're not drinking enough water, that's a very easy, practical thing. There's lots of little ways we can encourage water. When it comes to the self-talk, I think that is a negative cycle. Obviously, understanding triggers, like if you know that you haven't eaten all day and you've had a crappy day, or you're really super tired, or maybe you're just really upset at the moment, you're probably going to come home and go and eat, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't even matter what you eat, really. That's the thing about judging, but it's more the thing that makes you feel bad. So, like if you ate the packet of chips and you went, beautiful, I'll move on, or the donut and move on, that's great. But if you're eating something and you are feeling bad about that and guilty and ashamed, and then you don't eat the next day because you're worried about the calories or whatever, I think it's more what happens after. If you can be a little bit aware of this is a predictable pattern. These are predictable things that you do on a regular basis. So I think nailing those, working out what is really happening and when does it happen? What creates this? Is it lack of sleep? Is it the fact that you don't like your job or your career, or you just, get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you weigh yourself, you look in the mirror and you have a cry and it ruins your day? Like the amount of people that have told me that they ruined their day because they jumped on the scale, and so I think it's being aware and then avoiding some of those obvious, like maybe creating a different routine, creating a distraction, a strategy, a tweak, something that's going to, like one of my favorites is if people like eating after dinner, and they'll love to have something after dinner, then make it nourishing, nurturing, create a little platter with some nuts and some dark chocolate and some dip and some cheese. And why avoid it? Make it something that is wonderful so that it doesn't require
kind of indulgence rather than a binge. And it almost makes me think,
no shame.
Yeah, what almost comes to my mind with that shame that you're talking about and with that guilt is almost like, can you imagine if you asked yourself the question, when you're going to eat at a time when you may not be hungry and you're just doing it because you're feeling bad? Am I hungry? Am I really hungry? Like, I'm just thinking that would be a great question to ask, right? And what I'm about to eat, it may seem like a great idea now, but if I'm not hungry, how's this going to make me feel after? I'm almost hearing that coming to my mind as you're talking about this guilt food eating. And I love how you have said, go, make it that little bit more luxurious if you are going to do that. So, and mindfulness. So you talk about movement as well. And I guess movement, because so many people, I guess they don't keep up with going to the gym. They join, they either go at it really hard at first, but then the wheels fall off. what do you implement as movement, and what is the healthy element for this for women or men for that fact at any age?
Yeah. One of the things I was going to say about the after dinner thing is often I'll ask them if they could go for a walk. So rather than sit down, watch the telly, and they're part of that routine and they always eat on the couch when they're watching telly, how about we go for a bit of a walk? And it's actually proven that within the hour, if you've eaten and then you go for a walk, it actually helps level out your blood sugars. So it actually helps distribute that, glucose and all the energy to the muscles, right? So it does a better job for you. But I think for me, the thing I teach now for movement is to find another reason. If you hate exercise, if you are not a gym person, don't go and buy a gym membership. Unless you're going to get yourself a personal trainer and they're going to be waiting for you, and you know that you're going to go because they're waiting for you, because that's how appointments work. You're more likely to go if you make an appointment, right? So I think it's finding ways to make those little commitments without trying to, because you don't need motivation. I think one of the biggest myths out there is that we need motivation. We don't need motivation. We need routine. We need a habit, right? So motivation comes after you've made that decision, you've made that commitment, you're going to do that thing, intending to do it, intention. You will feel more motivated when you do something. It's like, to me, that's like being happy. Happy comes when you do something. It doesn't stay there unless you do things that make you happy. I see motivation in exactly the same way, that motivation stays when you keep doing something to make you feel motivated, right?
Oh, but wow, that's so powerful.
Yeah, I see that. So I think one thing that people will say, they're waiting for motivation. They might be waiting a little while. They're waiting a while.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah. So find another reason, like especially stressed. If you're very stressed, if you're unwell, if you're overwhelmed or inactive, just walk. Just go for a walk, but use that as your mental health break. Use it as clarity, like especially if you're busy at work or you've been sitting all day at your desk, you'll actually be more productive. So use it as an energy boost. Find another reason, because most people, the idea of exercise isn't enough. We all know we should, but that's not enough to make you go and do it. So even like a lady I was talking to yesterday, walking around the shopping center for 2 hours. Hey, that's I don't know how many steps that is, but that's good, right? So that counts. So I think taking away the normal standard way we think about exercise and saying movement is movement. Put it, dance for 2 minutes. Most songs are about 3. Dance to one song a day. That's 3 minutes, and you'll be surprised how pumped you are, but also how high vibe you are, how that's lifted your spirit. Music, I think music is the best thing ever. If you're into podcasts, walk with that on, put your headphones in. There's lots of ways, but I think taking away that traditional, I must go to the gym for an hour or it's not going to be good enough. Like I've had clients to me, what good is walking? I'm not going to lose weight walking. I'm like, well, you're not going to lose weight doing nothing either. Like you're not going to get better sitting on the couch, right? So I think it's just unreleased. What's the word? Unleashing that, like just letting that all the rules go and go. I don't know how long I'm going to walk for. I might only walk to the mailbox and back, but I'm going to put my sneakers on in the morning. So that would be the biggest tip I've got. Get those sneakers on first thing. Doesn't matter if you don't go out in your active wear, you're going to look great no matter what. And you did have the intention to at least, do something, whether it be sometime in the day. So I think, just finding ways to make movement and not calling it anything, not labeling it, not saying it's good or good enough, or I think that's the key is finding ways every day, gardening, walking the dog, playing with your grandchildren at the park, any way, any movement is good movement.
Or your children or your partner.
Or your partner, that's right. My kids don't want to hang with me anymore.
And I mean, you obviously are doing the right thing anyways. And I know you have a very powerful script in your hands that obviously we're not going to share on this episode, but it's about cellular repair. Now, I also know that, you're a busy mum yourself with two boys that have got mental issues. And so, therefore, you cope really, really well. So, obviously, you are doing something right. So, what would you say to with, how a person out there is struggling? Perhaps when we look at the cellular repair, what does that actually do for people when you're obviously taking them through that very powerful meditation?
I think bringing them back, the best way to describe it, or how I describe it, is bringing them back to themselves. So sort of letting go of all the stuff they're dealing with. It's the same as when a client comes to my gym here. Let's just let go of everything else and make this about you and bring you back to you and be present and mindful. Because this, I think that one of the biggest secrets to being youthful is letting that stress go. If you don't have a way of dealing with stress, we all have stress of all different kinds. We've all got things going on in our world. We all have times of high struggle. So I think self-acceptance, like loving yourself as you are. So you're not judging yourself, saying that you're not doing these things. Well, you're pretty overwhelmed and you've got a lot on that. I'm not surprised you're not doing those things, right? So coming back or having something that you can do anytime, anywhere, easy, bring you back down to you, bring that cortisol, which is your stress hormones, back down to a level, like creating that baseline where it's kind of repairing the damage of stress, letting go of the tension. And with movement, the two coupled together, that's a youthful body and a healthy mind, which I'm all for. Like that's the secret, I think, to being just feeling better in general. And it doesn't matter where you're at either. Like, we can meet you where you're at, because you can do that at any age level. Doesn't matter what your life's like. That will help you regroup, like bring you back in to you, reconnect into you.
It makes so much sense. I mean, we all have cells that renew. So by what you're saying, it's almost like, well, instead of having the same thoughts, the same habits, the same old routines, when you're bringing it all that together and you're making changes with people to help them eat when they're hungry, help them to eat that self-love, and all of those great tips that you've given to our listeners, what that's also doing is renewing the cells in itself. So when you're actually renewed with this new mindset, you're bringing in this new pure creation of these beautiful cells. So I'd like to talk about shame to shimmy now. So Leanne, you are about to really, I guess, expound on this program, and this is your signature program. And because it's really about releasing all of these habits from shame, guilt, and transforming that person into their most vibrant and confident person they can possibly be. Shania Twain happens to be the person that you hold as one of those. I guess you channel Shania Twain. So I'm thinking, as you go through this program, so you've got a couple of modules here that are very interesting. One of them called Getting to the Root Cause of Your Habits and Shifting This to become your superpower. I love that. So the things that people are suffering, it's almost like you're helping them to move it from where it was into something that is going to be really their, their claim to fame. And the other module that you've got going is movement and magnetism, shifting the negative energy and moving into your best body daily. And that's without having to go to the gym or a diet. And that's through obviously those special stretches and all those beautiful elements that you teach. And then there's another module that really goes into the codes of eating. So you heard what Leanne said about the eating elements, the magic of, can you imagine you turn up and your friend looks at you and goes, wow, what have you done? Like, you look so different. You just seem so different. And then you turn around and you say, I eat when I'm hungry. I eat what I desire. I stop when I feel good, and I eat mindfully. It's like, it almost sounds too good to be true, right? But this is in
And I
your
move my
module.
body when in a way that
Yeah,
feels good to me, not in
yeah,
a way that I think I'm supposed to. Yeah.
yeah. And of course, you've got the big grand finale, cellular repair, which is the recoding of taking that person back to the remembrance of who they are and connecting in with their, I guess, their primitive self to learn all of these things again, how to tap into eating when you're hungry, how to create those great habits, and really igniting your spark. So I'd like to say this program just sounds amazing. And, I'd like to say, what do you believe is the difference between this program to say the one that you get, and we won't mention brand names because we want to honor everyone here, but, the typical diets and fads brands of where they tell you, do this for so many days, eat this for so many days. What's the difference between that and the program that you are creating?
I would say teaching you to listen to your own body, not follow a diet. That is one of the biggest things I'm about. And I'd also say the high contact, like, because there is a lot of access to me as pretty much on demand, to ask questions, to get feedback, to feel supported, to be heard, where I think, a lot of the click and collect, well, I call them click and collect, like the do it yourself, they're expecting you to already have a level of motivation. And you do, and for some people they will have that and they can do it on their own, they can follow it, they can do all the diet food, like, follow the recipes and all that. But when I do the meal plans, because as a weight loss consultant, I'm also qualified to do that part as well as the PT, which is the fitness therapy. So I've got kind of the whole thing going on. But it means that you can have the recipes, you can have ideas. I'm more about giving you and inspiring you with ideas. I've never seen anyone follow a diet plan to the letter ever. So I don't even really give a full plan. I will give a month. But then I don't even expect you to follow that. I expect you to pick food that you love to eat, normal meals that you eat anytime, right? Normal meals that you would eat anytime. So it's more encouraging you to take control, you to feel into what you like to do, how you like to move, how you like to eat. I'm there to answer any questions and to unravel some of the unlearn some of the things that maybe you've been doing that aren't working for you, or that you have got confused with, or just need that someone to listen, really. So I'm there as a backup, and I don't expect you to do it on your own. And I think a lot of those programs you are on your own pretty much, even though you might have a community or a website or something like that. There's no one to ask. There's no one to have a chat to about it. So I think by adding in that part of it, that component where you can message me anytime, I can leave you messages, you can leave me messages, I can give you whatever resources you need as you need them. So I can kind of meet you where you're at. I think that's more important, is that I meet you where you're at, so I will know where you're at and be able to direct you and guide you, so you can see progress, so you can move through it without wondering how you're going to do this.
And actually getting results too. The magic I just heard in there is that when people are struggling and battling with motivation, and I think you really gave a gold clue away, that when you are joining up with something, the people or whatever that you're joining with expect you to be motivated to do it. When Leanne really knows deep down inside that that is one of your biggest reasons why you're not doing it, because you're lacking that. So in that motivation piece that you have, you're obviously offering that inside your program. This is a part of the recoding that Leanne is giving. And oh my gosh, can you imagine having your own transformational therapist in your back pocket that's going to help you, guide you to eating with love and being inside your greatest body? So is there anything that you would love to share, Leanne? Because what we're going to do also is we're going to make sure that your link is here. People can directly message you or go to you, obviously, if you are wanting to join Leanne's program. So the link will be here where you're seeing this or listening to this on the podcast. Do you have any last words, Leanne, that you would like to add to our audience?
I think just making it as simple as possible. Don't overthink it. Don't, and be really kind to yourself. That's you
That's
really,
powerful.
you need to be kind to yourself and cut yourself some slack. Yeah.
I love that. Keep it simple. And when you keep it simple and you follow that, it's amazing how easy life becomes when you do that. Everybody's looking for something hard that's beyond them, aren't they? When
Definitely.
what I'm hearing is you're saying that what you're teaching is that really simplicity is about everything being inside you. And this is what Leanne's going to wake up in you. She'll wake up your inspiration that is going to inject your motivation, but that is a really big piece of what she takes you through in this particular program. And is it a month long that they're with you, or is it, what's the length of time?
It
How
is a
long's
month.
a piece of string?
Yeah, yeah, because I know with the Eating with Love is a monthly membership. The Mojo Boot Camp, which is the movement component of it, is a monthly membership. So it's sort of bolted in. I actually feel like 3 months is a really good time to be together, to really let
Beautiful,
you
12
really
weeks.
experience
Nice.
the whole thing. But
Mm,
there's probably be a couple of options. I'm still nutting the end of
of
it.
course. Yeah.
Jerry's
I see
got
that.
me on
That's
the
what
hot bit early.
yeah. I mean, that's why you're meeting people where they're at. So the best way to actually know, obviously, what you can do is to understand that if you're in the flagship where you're just going through and you're moving through this for the 3-month period, or if Leanne can directly meet you right where you're at. And the best way to do that is to obviously speak to this
Cool.
wonderful
Yeah,
lady and
jump on the
connect
call.
in, and and move from shame to shimmy. So thank you so much, Leanne, for your beautiful gold nuggets, your share. And I am sure that so many people are just going to take so much gold just from this session.
I hope so. I hope it helps. Yeah.